Hi, everybody. Coming up on 9:43 right now. It is a stormy evening here in the Carolinas. We've got a lot to talk about here, including storms that are firing up across the area and some feisty storms at that. We're talking about lots of lightning, some heavy rainfall, and you're hearing those rumbles of thunder. I do have a severe thunderstorm right now happening over Pickens and Oconee County. We need to get right to that, and we'll continue this chat. I've got a lot to talk to you about today, including the chance that Lee is going to become a Cat 5 in just a couple of hours. This storm system is a monster right now. If you can, please let me know where you're watching from on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. I've got all three kind of right here in front of me, able to give you the latest of what's happening right now. So in the Western Carolinas, we've got a cold front coming through, and that has just agitated the atmosphere. I mean, we're talking about really, really heavy rainfall right now, and a couple of severe storms that have really packed a punch today. This severe thunderstorm warning goes for about another minute. We're probably going to see this expire. Nonetheless, that outflow boundary, it meant business as it's rolling through, and it is just pouring right now over Simpsonville, Five Forks, 385, stretching down to Fountain Inn. You're probably hearing that thunder off in the distance. Maybe you're watching NFL on NBC right now. We are at halftime. You're seeing the crawl at the top of the screen, and it has been a stormy night across the area. So, yep, I do believe this is about to expire here, but Clemson just getting poured on right now. And speaking of Clemson, we need to talk about the very real possibility that it rains for part of the game on Saturday. So a lot to unpack here as we're watching this all, and I hit the wrong button. My bad. There we go. Technical difficulty there. Okay. So, hey, a lot to talk about here, including the chance that Clemson does see some rain. I'm also watching Carolina and Georgia. Of course, big Furman-Carolina matchup, and in Georgia, a big home game. So probably going to see some showers at some of these, and some of these showers could be on the heavy side. Hey, folks, if you haven't already, please go ahead. If you're watching on YouTube, or if you're not, head on over to YouTube, like this video, subscribe, and get on notifications, because anytime severe weather strikes, whether it be storms like this or hurricanes like we're tracking right now with Lee, I'm going to keep you posted along the way. There we go. Got the camera. The camera fell right before I hit the play button, so it kind of gave me some trouble here at the beginning. So we're getting all the kinks worked out tonight. Hope you're having a good one. We're almost there. Friday is tomorrow, and it's going to be a gorgeous day. Hopefully you're not having a couple extra cups of coffee due to lack of sleep. I've already said one of ours has already come downstairs tonight because of the thunder all over Greenville. But there you go. That's what you do. It's really pouring right now in areas that have already seen some rain. Some areas have managed to kind of escape it today. What have you seen in your neck of the woods? I got to tell you, it's been all around my house until right now, where it's just been pouring over the past couple hours in Greenville, east side down towards Simpsonville. Anywhere from Woodruff Road south toward Fountain Inn, it's just all around you, basically, from Gaylord's Crossroads to Cook's Crossroads, up here toward 417. You go up 14 here from downtown Simpsonville to Woodruff Road and 14. The worst of it's kind of over toward Five Forks, going into Spartanburg County. And speaking of Spartanburg County, you're about to get another round. After having a severe thunderstorm earlier in Spartanburg, you're likely to get another round. And if you haven't had the storm right on top of you, it's been all around you, and you've at least seen the lightning or heard the thunder around. It's been a very, very stormy night across the area. Our president and general manager, John Humphreys, sent me a video of the lightning off in the distance, the crickets kind of doing their thing, and the frogs. It just the definition of a summer video, right? Those days are numbered. I tell you what, fall is coming in quickly, folks. In fact, my forecast calls for significantly cooler temperatures next week, highs in the 70s. So we are talking about a lot of changes coming our way. But yeah, storms are rolling through the upstate right now. I'm going to get to Lee here in just a second. Got new model data in for that. But boy, Clemson to Walhalla, seeing a lot of rain right now, as well as Lake Hartwell stretching to Anderson. And it's been a stormy night, but this front is rolling through the area. What about Clemson? What about football games this weekend? Well, let's get right to the nitty-gritty because as we go into tomorrow, I expect this to be a lot drier across the area. Friday night football games are looking A-okay across the area. I don't see much, if any, problems. But tomorrow night into Saturday, things begin to change. A piece of upper level energy is rolling our way. It's going to spark some thunderstorms here and there. It will not be a washout. In fact, you'll probably get plenty of dry time on Saturday. But look what happens as we get deeper into the day. We've got thunderstorms that are popping up here and there, and they'll be quite strong here and there, meaning we'll get some heavy rain, we'll get some lightning here and there, but it's not going to be for everybody. But some of those downpours could continue into Saturday evening. I do have fears that this is going to play spoiler to at least some of our games around town and at least some of your outdoor plans going into the weekend. So what about Lee? If you're checking in with Lee, you should keep checking in because this system is a monster. It is an absolute monster. And I can't tell you, nobody can tell you with 100% certainty that this thing is going to curve out to sea. There's just not enough evidence that that's going to happen. And time again, we have, what's the right word? Not been caught off guard, but we've seen these storms, especially these big ones like this, just keep chugging west. Even though the model data tells us one thing, it just did the opposite. Matthew would be one of the biggest examples of that, where it was heading west as a Cat 4, and a lot of the models were like, don't worry about it, it's going to turn east or north. Right. It didn't. It just it never turned. So it went up to Florida. It kind of hugged the Florida coastline, hugged the Georgia coastline, hugged the South Carolina coastline. It was a monster all the way up the Atlantic coast, and it created a lot of damage. So let's look at the storm in depth right now. I'm going to tell you my honest thoughts, and right now, I honestly mean this when I say it. Anybody from Key West to Maine needs to pay attention because you're still in the ball game, okay? Yes, the models do show a recurve, but do I believe them? No, not necessarily. I think it's going to get a little closer to the United States than these models are showing. I hope that it doesn't. I hope that they continue to stay like this, but I just know too much about the atmosphere and know too much about these storms, and I've been doing this 20 years to know that these things typically have a mind of their own, okay? So let's look at the storm in depth right now. Look at it. I mean, this is the most organized and the strongest storm that we've had this year. I mean, Idalia got up to a Cat 4. It never looked this organized. It never looked this monstrous, okay? This is an absolute buzzsaw. This reminds me of Hurricane Maria, to be honest with you. Just a devastating hurricane for St. Martin, the Caribbean islands. It's going to go just north of there, okay? This is an unsurvivable hurricane where it's at right now. I mean, these winds at this eye wall right now are sustained near 150 miles per hour. That's the equivalent of having a 20, 30, 40 mile wide EF2, EF3 tornado sitting right on top of you for hours and hours at a time. It would rip bark off trees. It's just terrible right there what this can do. Flip cars, rip houses to shreds. I mean, this is a devastating hurricane, and that's aside from any water, okay? That's just the wind, okay? That's just the wind. The water right now that this thing is generating, 30-foot swells right now. So imagine a 3-story building high wave. I mean, I've seen those movies. I know what they look like in Hollywood. Just terrifying. Now, thank goodness this thing is nowhere near a landmass right now, or even an island, okay? I know that the folks in Puerto Rico and the Caribbean islands are watching this thing closely, but it does look like it's going to go north of there. So we do have confidence that it should very well miss these Caribbean islands, but we know that we have to watch that closely for them. But let's dive into it. Let's show you the latest. 130 mile per hour winds, but that was at 5 o'clock. The new advisory that will come out at 11 will very likely have this at a Cat 5. If not, it'll be very, very close. The models do show a Cat 5 by the 2 a.m. update, and it remains a Cat 5 through tomorrow with winds up to 165 miles per hour. Cat 5. I mean, just even saying that out loud just boggles my mind. I mean, it just, you read about them in meteorology school. They have happened before, but they're very rare. Okay. So here we are, the storm system just chugging on its way, maintaining Cat 4 strength. I don't like the look of it. Matthew was a little bit farther south. Okay. Matthew was somewhere in there. Maria, somewhere in here. Okay. So we got to watch it. That, simply put, we just got to watch it. And even though I told you Miami to Maine needs to watch it. Even though Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas may eventually get out of a threat, New England, I'm telling you what, the way this thing is shaping up and the way it's curving, I wouldn't rule out impacts from New York City to Boston to even Canada, Nova Scotia. Could have some impacts here. St. John's. I mean, we're talking about this thing being a real big impact and moving into some treacherous waters. All right, here we go. I want to rewind this for a minute because here's a big thing to note with this. Here we are. All right. So notice this is chugging along on its way. It's moving. Notice the lines kind of stop. For a second, I thought, okay, maybe my graphics computer's stalling on me. No. This thing stalls out for probably 2 days, maybe even 3. This will be Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. It's just kind of there. So next week is going to be one of those weeks where we're just like, we think it's going to curve. We're hoping it's going to curve. You'll hear us say that probably every other day, every other hour. I mean, until it actually curves, I'm not going to rest well. Okay, I'm just not, because I know that this thing is a monster. I know that we're staring down a monster that's a couple of miles ahead of us on the road. We got to watch it. All right, that's all we can say about it. Got to watch it. So the model's still in great agreement that it's going to turn between the Outer Banks and Bermuda. This would be okay. I mean, it'd be well east of the Outer Banks. It'd be well west of Bermuda, but it would still have that threat there. Let's unpack one of those models of those spaghettis I just showed you, the GFS. Now, this is the GFS combined with all of its different ensembles. You hear us talk about that, and anybody can show you a model, a GFS or a European or a Canadian model, and say this is what it's going to do. But unless you're a meteorologist that has the know-how and the degree, the background, the history of tracking these monsters, you other than doing it as a hobby for yourself, you really shouldn't be. You really shouldn't be sharing that type stuff. So, as a meteorologist, just kind of taking back the cloak and letting you know kind of inside baseball, I look at these ensemble runs more than just about anything. So this basically tells me how is the GFS behaving. And basically I look at all these different runs. These are different runs of the same model. What does that mean? Well, a model is basically a computer model that's printing out what it thinks is going to happen. Well, we plug variations into that. The current starting position, the current speed, the current dew point, the current everything goes into that. But we tweak it a little bit with the other 26 runs. And if you end up in a same result or a near result, that's a solid forecast. You would want to see these in a line. And we do. We have great agreement here in this GFS model. This is going to miss the Caribbean islands. So, okay. Puerto Rico, Windward Islands, Leeward Islands, here toward the Dominican. Of course you're dialed in and watching it. You're probably going to get some pretty gnarly waves off of it. The Bahamas, the Turks and Caicos, yikes. I mean, talk about a close call. But the GFS model has this thing kind of moving west, and then it curves to the north. The operational run that you see shared a lot or we show on TV, it's right here in the yellow, and then the other 26 runs. What I look for here is trends, and if a lot more of these lines were west of this yellow one, I'd say this thing's trending west. But right now, they're kind of 50-50, to be honest with you. But notice how much less agreement you have up here. Look at the lines. There's a huge spread when compared to down there. For example, there's a 450-mile spread. There's a lot different impacts if it goes right here versus right here. However, out of all the different variations of the GFS model, all of them have it well away from the United States. So that's good. Okay, how about the European model, old trusty Euro? Similar, but closer to the United States, okay? It, too, is very confident in it missing the Windward and Leeward Islands. The operational is kind of right there in the middle, which you would expect, but look at how it spreads significantly. Some of them have going east of Bermuda. That's unlikely. Some of it had going just west of Bermuda. Then others have it kind of getting a lot closer to the Outer Banks. I will say today, the European model has trended west. Not a lot, but at this point, we're still 7 or 8 days away from this possibly being near the United States coastline. So if it's trending one way or the other a little bit, little impacts here have big impacts down the road. So again, I don't say that to alarm you. I say that to just kind of say, don't check out on this thing, okay? So here we are, Outer Banks to Bermuda. Europeans right there in the middle. All right, what does this look like on the model? Well, this is the operational European model I just showed you there in yellow. It is moving west, 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 and west. Here's what's going to be the whole key of the ball game here is this front and the associated dip in the jet stream with this front. It's called a trough. It's going to eventually turn this thing to the north, okay? If this front is delayed, this thing's going to either kind of sit here and stall out, okay, or it's going to continue slowly moving west and then do a little curve like that. Look what happens out of this European. I mean, talk about a close call again. This front protects the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida. However, it's not as certain for our friends toward the northeast and the New England. Front should still do its thing, but yikes. Close call there. Big time cool down for us, though, across the East Coast from this front. What would be ideal is if this front could come through, cool us all down for next weekend. Not this weekend. This is next Friday, a week from tomorrow. Cool us down, low humidity, pleasant weekend in the 70s. You're doing your apple picking. You're doing your apple cider donuts. You're leaf peeping in parts of the mountains. You're getting some pumpkin spice latte, but we're not worried about a hurricane. Hopefully this front does that. Hopefully this front does that, keeps this thing out to sea, and we're going to be just fine. But again, you see how close the European is today, and that's the closest it's been. All right. So watching it. We're just watching it. 4-day looks like this. We've got some storms that are going to try to fire up again Saturday and Sunday. We got to watch that closely because it could impact some of the football games around town. Clemson and Carolina. Furman going to Carolina. Clemson home game. Georgia home game. So a lot going on. Wofford travels to Williamsburg. Should have no issues there. So we're watching it. We're dialed in on it, folks. And again, if you haven't already, please head on over to my YouTube page. If you're there right now, real easy to subscribe. I'm a straight shooter when it comes to severe weather. I'm going to let you know kind of behind the cloak of what you see on TV, kind of let you in on some of my forecasting thoughts. You know, when I'm concerned, I'm going to tell you I'm concerned. When I'm not concerned, I'll tell you that too. And of course, I'll shoot you straight when it's time to be really concerned. You know, I'm going to tell you. So, folks, hope you have a good night. Stay dialed in. Until then, enjoy the football game. Looks like it's 14-7, Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes and them look to be equally as lethal this year as they were last year. Just so excited to see football back. Of course, football on NBC is always good. All right, folks, hope you have a good night.